message that Andrew delivered. So instead of using the devotion in the bulletin, I would like to read that for you. With my glasses. Don't skip ahead. Then it comes from the mighty. Oh, my people, remember now. Today's reading climaxes in a favorite Bible verse from me. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? In verse 8, but before those commands comes another one. Remember. Remember the grace of God has shown you. Remember the troubles from which God has rescued and redeemed you. Remember the saving acts of your Lord. This is the foundation. When we do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God, it is a response. Part of walking humbly is recognizing and remembering that God leads the dance. Rushing ahead to verse 8 steps on God's toes and threatens to make our behavior the focus, a subtle but real idolatry. Begin instead with a clear memory of how God has treated us. Let justice, kindness, and humble partnerships with God flow naturally from God's grace. And with that, I call this meeting to order. The agenda is in the annual report, page 1. We'll start with minutes of the meetings that we had in 2022. They are printed, and if you had a chance to look through those, if you have any questions or anything on those, then please ask. We'll bring a mic around to you, and we'd like to hear what you have to say. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the meetings of 2022 as written.
I so move.
I second.
Thank you.
Point of order.
Point of order.
We need to declare a quorum.
Yes.
We actually have 34 voting members present. That is a quorum for business. So
In case you didn't hear that, we do officially have a quorum.
now motion.
Yes. All those in favor of approving the minutes as posted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Committee reports are also printed in your annual report. I really hope you took the time to go through and read those, because it tells us what's going on behind the scenes in our church. And if you haven't, go through those, because there's a lot of things going on here. So I would entertain any questions that you might have to any of the people who put a report in there. Or anything you would want to add to one of their reports. Really? Need a mic? Just a second.
They were beautifully written. I really enjoyed reading all the details and information that I didn't have even as many years ago as I've been here.
Thank you. Anything else on any of the reports? I want to personally thank all the people who took the time to do that. The reports I thought were very well written this year, and it really does paint a picture. So we'll move from there to the operating budget, and I'll turn it over to Lorraine.
I guess everybody wants to know about the money. So the budget is in your packet, and it starts on page 46. Like a lot of people, you look from the budget, you want to see the bottom line. So I want to talk about page 49, there's a summary. And this one, you see in the summary, in 2022, we budgeted for a balanced budget. Money coming in was going to equal money going out. This year, 2023, that's not happening. We looked at our potential income, we looked at what we wanted to spend money on, and money going out exceeds money coming in by almost $60,000. That was a hard pill for the council to swallow. How do we do this? What does that mean? So how we get this number, I really want to talk about a little bit. So you give me a microphone and here I go. The first part you look at, page 46, is pretty easy. It's your income. We can see that income has been going down, and we know there's a lot of reasons for it. We lose people, we had COVID, we haven't had the programs to get people excited about coming, we're all aging. There's a lot of reasons for income to go down. And inflation's eating at all of our budgets. Things are more expensive, it makes it harder to make ends meet. It's harder to sustain anything that we think is important, including the church. We have always made up a lot of money in designated funds. We're also renting out the building a whole lot more. And as you can see, our income has actually almost doubled in the last couple of years from building use. And I think that was intentional. We want this building to be the heart of the community. We don't want it to be a big empty shell in the middle of the community for 6 days a week. The expenses, and this is kind of where we're talking. The expenses come in 3 different areas. We've talked a lot about property, program, and people. Property, we paid off the building, we've got some money in the bank. It's still a building without heat and electricity and utilities. It's a cold building. And so we still have those. I don't know if anyone else saw their natural gas bill says they're given a 16% increase in our rates. It affects our building here too. So when we budgeted, we had to make sure we have enough money to make this building a welcoming place, which is the second part. It's not welcoming if there's no people here. And actually, if you're looking back at the summary, we budgeted last year for a balanced budget, and then we decided we needed people. We needed somebody here to welcome people, to hold things together, and if you read the minutes, we voted outside the budget to add money for a staff person. Thank you, Brian. So we have a person who's here, the building's open, people have questions. Even if you're planning a program that you want to work with, there's someone here to do it. It's the person who coordinates the people who make your coffees, people who make sure the tables are set up, you have chairs to sit in, you have a budget to look at, there's a piece of paper in front of you. Happens on Sundays too, same thing. So we thought it was important that we have people. And we're continuing that process. We need more than just an administrative person. We have a lot of volunteers, as much as we can. I think we all do that. We're still looking for a pastor. And so we put in the budget for a pastor. Now we're trying to have good stewardship of our money. So we are looking for a half-time pastor. And for some of us, that would be a start. For some, that's where we're going to be. But that's part of our budget. And we need to make sure that happens, because without a pastor, what's a church? It's a social club. And we want to be a church. And so there's more money spent for a pastor. And then program is one that we hope will follow the pastor and the people, and we can rebuild our programs. There isn't a lot of money in this budget for programs. There's money put in that we always put in because we're hopeful. Hope's not a strategy, but we want the money there in case someone comes up or something happens that says, hey, we've got a chance to do something. We want to have the funds to get it started. So there's some minimal money there for our programs. And then how do we pay it? How do you go $60,000 in debt? Well, that was a decision last year that we have the money from the sale of the other house, and unless we get more money in, that's what's going to hold us through. That's our seed money. To me, that's our seed money, so to speak. I'm hoping that we don't just keep taking $60,000 every year till it's gone, which is 2 years if you do the math, but that we can use it as an investment to start building. We're not going to hide our talents in the ground. There's no point, in my opinion now, getting my opinion, to hide our talents in the ground. But that was the decision, was we're gonna go ahead and put the money into the building to keep it warm. We're gonna put the money into the people to run the building and keep us going. And then hopefully some programs. So that's kind of the overall picture of the budget, how we got here, and why you see that horrible number at the end of the summary. I don't know if you have questions, if Lauren wanted to add anything to that. Dwayne, someone, who's running the microphone? Mike, Matt.
Give me a clarification on the expenses, Roger Peter. We've got a line item in there for $10,000.
For La Casita, we had, they need a new roof. La Casita needs a new roof. It is our property still. We need to maintain our property, and that was there for a new roof. It's been coming. They've needed a new roof for
Well, the
years.
next line item, see, the one, the next line item is the same.
No, the next one is actually utilities, and,
One for utilities, but one is for maintenance.
yes. We have maintenance of La Casita, we put in the 10,000 for the roof. The utilities, and actually, we received money, and I'll get to that number, from Mono a Mono, and that pays for most of the utilities. So most of the utilities we pay on La Casita is reimbursed to us.
Okay.
Marlene had one behind you too, ma'am. Garbage man.
You've lost me. I am not able to follow anything you said. I can't find the link.
Page 48 and 40, page 49 has the summary.
Yeah, we started on 46, and now we're on 48. But where are we?
Oh, for what we're talking? Just for the La Casita maintenance or overall, Marlene?
Overall.
That's what I was thought. I had started, the budget actually started on page 46, and yes, I did jump to 49 to talk about the summary and the bottom line. Between 46 and 49 are the details, which I have not gone into, but I'm willing to talk about any of the details to anybody going through that.
I'm just trying to follow.
I know, I'm trying to show you where I jumped around a little bit and see if you could follow my rabbit hoppings. Probably a good thing you can't read my mind. Brian?
Now a motion on the floor in a second, so now we can discuss.
So Brian has reminded us that in order to discuss the budget, I just presented it, we need to have a motion to accept it or not accept it.
And that can be amended.
And it can be amended, but we need a motion to get started.
I move that we accept the budget for 2023.
Second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. So, with this, I'll open discussion.
Now we're back to talk.
Now,
Now I can keep talking, okay. I think I lost everyone. I think we're stunned by those numbers. But,
any more discussion on the budget? Okay.
Andrew,
Did you cover I just, so a big, a lot of that 60,000 is primarily for staff and for building upkeep and also for keeping the lights, you know, is that the primary source of that 60,000? Is it beside a rough summary of what
Andrew asked if the summary was primary for staff, building upkeep and keeping the lights on. That's the biggest part of the whole budget. Everything kind of adds small pieces to that. We added, you know, when you add a pastor, that adds a few thousand. When you add staff, that adds a few thousand. When utility goes up, it adds a few thousand. A few thousand here and there, we're talking 60,000.
I think what Lorraine is seeing is that there isn't any one item throughout the budget that makes that $60,000 deficit. It's just that all of the prices or all of our expenses have slowly gone up, not so slowly in some cases. And you look at our giving statements, We have fewer people, so we have less money, so it's just a difference between what's coming in and what's going out, and there isn't any one place that we can point to say, this is where it's happening.
Could you clarify for me, so we're looking at almost 60,000, so is the plan as we go forward with this budget then, is if we fall short for what we need, which looks like we will, to take from that money that we have in the bank to fulfill the needs?
That would be what we need to do.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Brian?
Yes, Margot, I think all of you will realize that when we sold the Easter House to Family Promise, we paid off our mortgage. We've not been paying a mortgage for a year and a half. And we put all that money, roughly $180,000, well, $15,000 in the sale of the house. But our bank balance has hovered around $180,000 in our checking account since then. We have had months where we do not bring in as much income from contributions or from building use as we spend, and then we have other months where it's the opposite. So all year long, until literally December, it hovered at that 180,000 range. We finished the year, and I think if you then look at your balance sheet, page 51, you will see the second line down says maps, and it's 170,475 at year end, and it started the year at 183. So you can see that $13,000 drop in our checking account corresponds to, and for everyone's benefit, if you turn back the page to 49, you see an approximate gain or loss of around $15,000. That's the drop in our checking account. So to answer your question, we have the money as part of our assets, but what we're really pointing out to you is our income month to month does not equal our outgo month to month. And for the foreseeable future, Lauren could rent this entire facility overnight, maybe, and we may or may not get enough income to cover our costs. Pastors' fees have gone up. Hiring full-time staff increases your costs. Maintenance that we've been doing on our building and we now need to do on the little house that's connected to our gym has gone up. And so all of those total that roughly $60,000 in debt. But council and finance both looked at that number and said, we need to bring it to the congregation so everyone is aware that it's not a case of us asking you to dig deeper into your pocket. We have a very good core of faithful givers. But what we need to do is realize, how do we increase either our contributions from the church, and I can tell you, looking at our demographics, that may be hard to do, or secondly, how can we maximize the money that comes through this building? And we've definitely done that this year as we've expanded programs and brought in other groups. But we need to realize that our church, Holy Cross, does not use this facility 100%, and there's a lot of space here that we can rent out to other groups. Hope that helps.
I also want to point out that the council has been heavily involved, and you guys have been involved with discussions on where we're going. And I guess I see this as a down year, but we're looking at what we want to do, where we're going, and that's why, yeah, we're going to be in the negative for now, but by the end of the year, can we join with someone? Can we get some excitement going that draws new people? What's our plan for the year? And that's a lot of what council and Better Together and all those discussions are about. It's not that we like to get together and have meetings and eat Dutch cookies. It's that we want to look at where we're going and what is the trajectory of the church? Where are we going? And that's why it's important to get involved with this.
I have just a couple of things to what they've already said. Yeah, we are working on increasing the use of this building. Right now, we're working on revising our fee schedules and looking for ways that we can bring people in. We have, if you were to look at our calendar, and I would suggest you do that. We have go to the website pop on the calendar and look at the building use in there, and there are people in this building now every day. And we're looking for an increase in that as well. So that should help. That's not going to be, it's not going to fill the gap. There is, I don't see any way that we could generate $60,000 of income in that short period of time with this building, but it'll certainly help. The other thing, and I'm going to let Doug speak to the call committee here just after we finish this process, is that we are looking at change. This is a budget to get us through this year, because we don't know where we're going to be and what's happening next year. But we're working on that as well. So that's all I have to say. If there aren't any other questions, I will call for votes. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to comment. I'm back here. Look the other way.
I could hear you.
Yesterday we had our call committee meeting, and I'm sorry I don't step on whatever Doug was going to talk about. But I want to focus on a word that we're trying to focus on in the call committee: transformation. We need to look at transformation, not just change, because a new pastor, that's a change, but it's not transforming. And so we need, I see as we move forward, we need to look at how we use this building differently. Maybe we just are guests here and we invite the community to have it. I don't mean own it, but have it. And they do all the maintenance and make sure it runs and blah, 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 and we have worship and enjoy. I don't know, but we need to start moving our heads to transformation.
It's not turned on.
It's just a thought that there's possibly some specific items on the budget, a repair or whatever. In the past, we've had a fundraising auction in the spring to possibly pay for those items or have a project be matched with private funds to help just boost the budget.
Yeah, and those are all good ideas, and I think they're ones the council and the congregation will take up in the year to come.
I think it's true, and what it takes for that to happen is someone to champion the idea. Someone to take a hold of it and say, we're going to do a fundraiser, and this is what I think we're going to do. Get people to step behind you and get going. The council will certainly listen to those kind of ideas. So feel free to come to the council with those, but it does take somebody to head it up and get it going. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so all those in favor of passing the operating budget as written and presented by Lorraine, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, same sign. Thank you. We now have an operating budget for this year. I forgot a couple of things I should have put in before we got to the budget, so I'm going to pick up a few loose ends here. First of all is Doug has asked for some time to make a report on where the call committee is, and so I'll give him that opportunity.
Oh, good, but the mic can just do it from here. So, your call committee is not letting grass grow under its feet. Even before you dedicated us a few Sundays ago, we had already met with Synod as an organizational meeting. We have had 2 meetings since. We have reviewed the ministry site profiles for both congregations with special emphasis on what are considered the most important parts of being Lutherans in our spaces. All of the ones that you gave input for are being considered seriously by the committee, and we've used those as the scaffolding to hang the questions on that we are developing for the call. We expect very soon to have those questions finalized. Then we will go through and do a mock interview so we can see that these are successful questions that bring out the talents and personalities of any candidates we may have. And after that mock trial, not like a jury trial, but experiment, we anticipate moving on to whatever Synod can bring us for candidates. We're trying to run that in parallel. We're not trying to be perfect and sitting here ready before we ask Synod for that process to go forward on their end. So we're trying to work in parallel. We think that we're far enough along that we can ask Synod to start walking alongside with potential candidates. Any questions about the call process currently? Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Excuse me for jumping ahead in the agenda, but since we were there, I thought it would be a good time for Doug to speak and let you know where we are. I have a couple of thanks I would like to send out here. First of all, for Suzanne and Gabe and for furnishing the coffee and the cookies. They do that faithfully every week. You can help them out. If you don't, if you can't come and actually make the coffee and that, you could check with one of them and see when they need cookies or something like that and bring it in, or put a little extra in that coffee money plate out there, and they can purchase them that way. I want to thank the council for the service today. You really stepped up and took the service in hand, and I appreciate it, especially Andrew for his message. Okay, with that, I think we're ready for a report from our nomination committee, so that'd be Brian.
Thank you, Lauren. Our nominating committee met late November, early December, and we looked over who we needed to nominate. So I'm going to turn your attention to, and I got to find the page number, about 45, I think. 42. And they're passing out ballots because as I was diving through our bylaws and constitution, one of the idiosyncrasies of our church is anytime you elect council members, it needs to be by written ballot. And I know we don't do that every year, but we try. And anytime you do an amendment to your bylaw or constitution, it needs to be by written ballot. And we have one of those today too. So I'm going to walk through here. As you know, I got to find my background sheet before I talk from the hip. Okay, way back in the fall of 2015, our church council had a retreat. And we realized one of the things we needed to do there was restructure our council. At the time, we had 14 members of council. We had 10 different committee members. We had 4 officers. And we were finding, as you can expect, declining numbers of people willing or able to serve on council and head committees. We came forward with a proposal that we then brought to this congregation in July of 2016, and it was voted on, and then we let it simmer until our annual meeting in 2017, where it was adopted to change our constitution to reduce our council to 7 members. And that is what we currently have. You still have your 4 officers, president, first vice president, second vice president, and secretary. And we went to 3 members at large. Keep 2017 in mind because it's an odd numbered year and that's going to come up in a little bit. One of the things we forgot to do back then, even though it was our intent, was to change the first vice president to a 2-year term, like our second vice president and secretary are. Currently, we have been voting since we became Holy Cross for a president and a first vice president every year. Every other office, including all those committee chairs, were 2-year terms. We're going to try and fix that, and that's what the first page of that blue ballot that was handed out is. We would like to elect our president still every year. We would like to elect first vice president every 2 years, like we do the other two officers.